Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to discuss Elizabeth von Arnim's classic novel, The Enchanted April, and to compare it against the 1991 movie adaptation by the same name. The Enchanted April was first published in 1922, and it is arguably the most popular of the more than 20 novels that Elizabeth von Arnim published during her lifetime. It was reportedly inspired by a trip that the author herself took to Italy, so I don't think I'll shock you by saying that this book revolves around a trip to Italy. The book and the movie take place in 1920s England. Drab and overlooked Lottie Wilkins notices an ad in the paper for an Italian castle up for rent that is touting wisteria and sunshine. She then proceeds to verbally assail another woman she catches looking dreamily at this exact same advertisement, getting it into her head that she, Mrs. Wilkins, and this complete stranger, Mrs. Rose Arbuthnot, should together rent this castle for the month of April. After much debate, most of it moral in nature, considering they'll have to somewhat deceive their husbands in order to pull this off, and Rose is very religious and opposed to that kind of a thing, they decide that yes, they will rent this Italian castle, but in order to reduce cost to themselves, they will invite 2 more people to come along with them, and so they put an advertisement out. And so they are joined by the only 2 people who actually answer the ad, as though it's fate. First, there's Lady Caroline Dester, who's a bored socialite whose face, voice, and mannerisms are so beautiful that everyone just flocks to her, irritatingly so for her. And then there is Mrs. Fisher, a woman in her mid-60s, very prim and proper, still clinging to Victorian sensibilities. And so off the 4 strangers go to spend a month together in Italy. As you can expect, all 4 of them are looking for something slightly different from the trip, and as we start to find out, all 4 of them are missing something different from their lives. Lottie Wilkins feels dreadfully undervalued. Rose Arbuthnot deeply feels the estrangement from her once beloved husband. Lady Caroline craves time to herself to think about whether or not she's spending her life properly. And then Mrs. Fisher claims to want to spend her time in her old books, dwelling in the past, but really it seems like she most wants companionship. Nearly immediately, the women begin to change. Lottie does first. It's almost like she turns into an entirely new person, and she credits the magic of the castle. Throughout the book, all 4 of them do a great deal of introspection. All 4 of them have seized upon this opportunity to get away, which always seems to do the mind good. And as the book goes on, they start to develop real friendships with one another. It's a little like Jane Austen meets a reality show. Like, this April, 4 strangers will come together for a trip to paradise. Anything can happen, except the anything in this case is very gentle and sweet as opposed to alcohol-soaked and sexualized. Not that I don't like those shows, because I do. But seriously, they do bump up against some typical housemate issues, like what spaces in the house belong to whom? How do they all want to spend their time? How do they not get on one another's nerves? That kind of thing. And then there's some more drama when the women start to propose the idea of other people joining them on the trip. The book does sag a little in the middle in terms of the tightness of the narrative. I definitely thought that the beginning and the ending parts were the strongest, but overall, it's just a delight of a book, like the epitome of a comfort read. I enjoyed this book so much that basically the moment I finished it, I went on to watch the movie, which I found out was shot on location in the exact same castle that Elizabeth von Arnim took her holiday, which inspired this book. It stars Josie Lawrence as Lottie Wilkins, Miranda Richardson as Rose Arbuthnot, Polly Walker as Caroline Dester, and Dame Joan Plowright as Mrs. Fisher. I was initially a little bit apprehensive about the casting of Lottie and Rose. Like when I first saw the cast photo of the 4 women, I actually thought their roles were reversed. But after now having seen the movie, I think they were perfect. Josie Lawrence does a great job of portraying herself as being very meek in those initial sections, only to morph into her more self-confident, assured, loving self when they're in Italy. And Miranda Richardson really does look the part of Rose. In the book, she's frequently compared to a Madonna. And when you look at her face, it does have that very soft yet angular quality to it. Dame Joan Plowright is a legend. I have loved her since Dennis the Menace, and I found her to be pitch perfect as Mrs. Fisher. And then finally, Polly Walker had me questioning my own vision when I realized she was not in fact Sophia Loren, or in some way related to Sophia Loren, or a very convincing hologram of Sophia Loren. She looks so much like her that I frankly find it rather scary, but she is so perfect in this movie. She's breezy and likable, even when she's being blatantly snooty. She nailed it. They all did, really. Miranda Richardson and Dame Joan Plowright both won Golden Globes for their performances. Other performances and the movie itself were nominated for Academy Awards. I personally think it should have won for Best Adapted Screenplay. Ironically enough, it lost out to Howard's End, another novel adaptation. But let me tell you, this is one of the most flawlessly done adaptations I have ever seen in my life. As I tend to do in these book versus movie videos, I would normally at this point harp on the differences between the book and the movie. I would tell you which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like, but I'm kind of lacking for material here because there were very few changes. There's really only one change that I personally didn't like, and that is a revelation about one of the husbands. It's presented very late in the book versus in the movie, it's presented nearly immediately. So if you watch the movie first, you miss out on the surprise of that, which is a little bit disappointing. But when I think about the screenplay as a whole, I can't really think of another way that they could have done that, a better way that they could have done that. So I can't even grump about that. The only other thing is a very small character change they made to the man who owns the castle, the one who's renting it to the ladies. In the movie, they made him very nearsighted. They made him have an eye condition, which provides some comedy at the beginning of the movie, and then by the end provides an absolute layup to the ending for one of the ladies. I thought it was a brilliant change, so small but so effective. I absolutely loved this movie, and it filled me with so much joy to think about how good of a job they did, how much justice they did the book. You get so many visuals of just how beautiful the castle is and how beautiful Italy is, but they don't overdo it. You don't necessarily miss out on those moments inside the characters' heads because they do introduce some very sparingly done voiceovers that I found very effective. Everything you stand to lose by watching the movie instead of reading the book, which is mainly von Arnim's wit throughout the book, you gain in visual impact. And really, the two are so similar that they're nearly interchangeable. I rarely say this, but it is basically flawlessly done. I would recommend that you read the book first, not out of any sense of literary purity, but because that little surprise I mentioned earlier will lose its impact if you watch the movie first, as opposed to experience it toward the end of the book. But other than that, you are in spectacular hands should you choose one of these over the other, or decide to take them in as a pair. I'd say if you like the novels of Elizabeth Gaskell, then I think you'll most enjoy the book, and if you like Downton Abbey, you'll most enjoy the movie. But if you enjoy both of those things, then my oh my, do you have some good times in store for you. So those were my thoughts on the Enchanted April and its movie adaptation. If you have any comments or questions about anything you've seen in this video, or about anything in general, you can put that in my comment section below. Or if you'd prefer to find me somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles will be in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.